Welcome to Laughter for All. It's the podcast with Comedian Nazareth.
Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Laughter for All podcast. I am Comedian Nazareth, and thank you for joining me on this Tuesday night in Southern California. It is probably in the 90s here, but it's a beautiful day. It is August already. It's August already. Some kids went to school already, people. When when did summer start? I mean, they're back to school, and which is good for me. I have one vulture still left in the nest, and she'll be going to school next week. I'm tired of chewing rats and mice for her and dropping it in her mouth every single day. Let the school do that. Anyway, I'm sorry. All right. If you're following where I'm going to be this Saturday, I'm going to be at Cornerstone Church in Waldemar. They're doing a conference on mental health. I don't know if it's a private one or it's open for the public. Check out, go to Cornerstone Waldemar, Cornerstone Church in Waldemar, and you can find all that. Next week, on Friday, I'm going to be in Omaha, back to school, concert for the radio station in Omaha, Nebraska. Next Friday, if you're near Nebraska or anywhere within the states around Nebraska, you can come down and just get your tickets and see me there. Saturday, I'm going to be in Virginia, and then Sunday I'll be flying to Norfolk, Virginia. I'm going to be on the 700 Club on Tuesday morning. I think it's live, so catch me on the 700 Club, CBN. And after that, I get on the Alaskan Holland America cruise with Mike Silva Ministries, and we're going to Alaska. So if there's still some tickets, if you want to follow the boat, jump in the middle of the trip, I don't think you have to pay. I don't know. Check it out on MikeSilvaMinistries.com. Enough. I got this new friend. He is oozing with coolness. He oozes. This guy he doesn't have to talk. It just oozing out of him. Now, I like the word oozing. I'm a foreigner. English is a second language. That word oozing is very, what do you call it? It's you have to be careful where to use it, because if you use it in a medical term, it's really bad. Like this, if the doctor said there's something oozing, it's disgusting. But if you meet someone who's just loves life, vibrant, exciting, electrifying, you say he's oozing with excitement and vibe and all that. So you're going to learn a lot from him. He used to own all these hair salons, so you learn more about hair, which I really need help with. But let me officially introduce him. Kelly Cardinas. He's a keynote speaker. He's a Forbes contributor. He's a best-selling author. He's a host of the Top Rank podcast and founder, CEO of the national multi-million-dollar brand Cardinas. He is also, they call him the Vibe Authority. So we're going to find out what is the vibe, but he's a motivational man, and I love to have him as a new friend. Please welcome my friend, Kelly Cardinas. Hi, Kelly.
How are you doing, Nazareth?
Good. Thank you so much, man. You're an influencer. You have so many people on social media and stuff. So thank you for taking the time to be with me.
I appreciate it, man. You're an incredible ball of life and energy, and I am inspired by you every single day, man.
Well, I told you I have 5 million followers, but that was in the metric system. That's it comes like about 1,200, 1,300 people, somewhere in that arena. We already have 99 people, so that's starting the show. Thank you, Facebook, for letting people know. You can chat with us, people. Do you have any questions for Mr. Cardinas? So Kelly, tell me about your dad.
We call him Pop. So Pop, I think, was the wisest man that I ever knew. And he was my best friend in the world. Although throughout his whole entire life, the 68 years that he was on this earth, I actually never told him that he was my best friend. Now, I hope that he knew it and he could hear me now. And he would talk to me like this. He'd be like, boy, like I told you this. And he would tell me lessons and things like that. And at the time I didn't realize it, but now I look at it and I'm like, I was very fortunate not only to have the greatest friend in the world, one of the wisest people in the world, but I had the honor of him being my dad, but I called him Pops.
What made him the wisest man in your world? I mean, what do you think made him a wise man?
He always told me that he never knew the answer, but he knew someone who did. And he always deferred to Jesus. That was it. Like he would always defer back to the word. I would want to answer out of my pop, like, hey, pop, just give me the answer. And he would be like, I don't know, but I know someone who does. And he would lead my eyes to the Lord. And there was probably a lot of times where he wanted to say, boy, I'll smack you upside the head. But he didn't. He always directed my eyes to the Lord because I believe he knew he was checking out early and he was going to spend time with Jesus and my mom and walk on streets of gold. And in that, I think that he prepared me very early on for a lot of years without him.
Wow. Now, what age did you know you because there's a time when you rebel. I mean, I have my first son. Yeah, my first is a boy and two girls, and there was a stage where they thought I am the smartest. Then they got to a point where I know nothing. I'm not funny. I know nothing about life. And then when does that start turning? When did that turn for you? When you go, wow, my pops is really smart.
My relationship really shifted with him. I think it was about 19 or 21. I was still the bonehead and I thought I knew everything and I thought I could teach him all these things. But he would allow me to stumble. And he would allow me to stumble, but he would be right there. And he would always encouraging me. He would say to me every single day of my life, you're the greatest, son. You're the greatest. And then it switched when my mom passed away and he said, you're the greatest. So act accordingly. And what he helped me to realize was that it wasn't your aptitude in life. It wasn't the things that you knew. It was the way in which you made people feel. And that's what we refer to as the vibe that you have. When someone walks away, the way that they feel is contingent on the vibe that you have inside of you. And my vibe was always that I was the greatest. So I needed to act according to that greatness. But I was only great because I was built by someone who was even greater, which was Jesus.
Amen, amen. So what? That's amazing, and I love getting into that vibe that you try to treat. I mean, does that every single person? Do you sometimes have a bad day? Let's call it. Let's say you have a conflict, you had an argument, you're not feeling. Did this happen every single day, or how can it happen every single time?
Well, I have bad days, man. I had it with the lady that tried to scam me on my email, and you guys have all got it, where they'll charge you on your credit card, and then they'll be like, hey, by the way, you have this charge, and they'll send you the email. Well, then they get you on the phone, and then they want your information so they could scam you again. Well, when this happened just a couple of weeks ago, and I was in Utah, and we were in Park City at our house there, and I was so, tranquil. We're in the mountains. I'm loving on my wife, my kids. And then I go into the closet and I start calling this lady an idiot. I start yelling at her, and my wife is looking at me, and I'm like, there's a place where we all lose our religion, right? And that, like,
and it's in the closet.
1-800 numbers is where I lose it, because my pops was huge on personal service and connecting with people. But honestly, on that day I failed, my kids heard me. They were like, Dad, you got real mad. And then I heard it last night. We were watching a show last night with my son and my wife. We're hanging out. And it was the movie Bruce Almighty with Jim Carrey. And Bruce Almighty got really angry at something. And my son was like, that's just like Dad when the dog pees on the carpet. And I was like, wait a second. But you see, what my pops taught me is that every kid is the difference between a video camera and your child is that a video camera has a stop, a pause, a rewind, and a delete button, and your kids don't. And your kids are watching every single thing, not the lessons that you're trying to teach them, but the actions in which you do every single day.
I'll tell you why this happened, and a lot of Christians don't know. I think right now I'm going to give people the solution to this. Why Christians were very nice. We try to be nice all the time, and I truly believe to fix this, we need one day called Retaliation Friday, one day a year, where you just go like you knock on like, excuse me, you don't remember me, but you know what? Our kids played soccer together, and last July at 10th at 7 a.m. they were playing. You called my son slow. Well, you're slow. Your whole family is slow, and he doesn't deserve the trophy either. Okay. And then you go to the next door, like the Jehovah Witness. Excuse me. You're the contractor that I have to use because you went to my church. And I gave you a great Yelp review. I'll tell you what, it was horrible. My house is still leaking. I go to Yelp, I took it out, and I put something else. Go read it. And then you knock on the third guy. You know what? Remember, you're the waiter at the Cheesecake Factory. We were there last week, and it was horrible service. But I gave you a big tip because I wanted to tell you about Jesus. I want my money back right now. Okay, I got to go. It's midnight. I will turn it into a pumpkin. I truly think, Kelly, if they give us one day, God gives us one day a year to let people know how we feel about them, not everyone, the bad ones. And then the rest of the year, tell the other people how great they are.
I think that should be once a week, man. I mean, if it was once, let's be real, right? And what I love about Jesus is he was real. Like he didn't pull any punches. Like when the people came to him and tried to heal, I believe there was a little guy, a lady or a little guy, and the disciples tried to heal him. And then Jesus walked up and he was mad and he looked at him and he was like, "Are you kidding me, guys? You were hanging out with me." And he looked at him, he said, how long will I have to suffer with you?
Yes.
And then he went in and healed. And I guarantee you, this is paraphrasing, but then he went in and he looked at all the disciples and he was like, "This gangster, I'm out." Like, you know what I'm saying? And I feel we need to be real, and Jesus is real. Like Jesus turned over the tables, and I think we should have a Friday and a Wednesday every week where, let's be real. Like,
we
what I'm
pass
saying?
on one and let people know on the other one. But that's right. That's the challenge. And that's why, you know what, for you to be able to have that personality, that vibe, that making desire to make feel good, there must be something is there like a ritual you do every day to get you in that mode?
Well, I think that it's, I was talking about it today and I was saying like, whatever you hear, you believe, and whatever you believe, you act on. You've never acted on something you didn't believe. And for a person who is like, "Oh, I did that, but it's not really me," you're lying. You're lying. You believed it at some point. And the cool thing for me in Nazareth is from a very early age, I heard the same three things from my mom every single morning when she scratched my back and woke me up. She would say, "You're awesome. Separate yourself from your accomplishments. You're beautiful. Don't ever compare yourself to anybody. And you can do anything that you put your mind to, but just because you could do it doesn't make it right." And
say that again. Please say that again. I want to do that again.
You're awesome. Separate yourself from your accomplishments. You're not awesome because you get A's or B's or C's or D's or F's, but you're also not awful because you get D's, F's, and sometimes not even a grade on the paper. You're beautiful. You're you. You're Kelly. Just be Kelly. No one can compete with that. And you could do anything that you put your mind to, but just because you could do it doesn't make it right. See, Nazareth, I believe this, that you could do, honestly, you could do anything. You could be out digging ditches and you would be successful because of who you are. But that doesn't make it right. You're in the pocket. You're one of very few people in the world that have found exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
But a lot of people do it because they're successful at it. And they get locked in. "Oh, well, I can't leave this because I'm successful." And so what I've learned is God changes his mind at times. And sometimes he has you out digging ditches. Sometimes he has you, like for me, I started off in the professional beauty industry as a hairdresser. Who would have ever known that would turn into a podcast and that would turn into a speaking career that goes all over the world? Who would ever thought? Now, but God knew that. But what he was doing is he was preparing me. So every time I saw a client in the chair, I had a 45-minute interview with them. So when I got into podcasting, it was very easy for me to ask a question and actually listen to the answer. But for 30 years, he prepared me, but I didn't know. But see, most of the time, we don't understand the things that God is doing because his time isn't our time. And he's never going to reveal it to us beforehand because otherwise we'll screw it up. So when I go back to the question of like, how was that? I heard that every single day of my life. And then I heard from my dad, "You're the greatest, son. So act accordingly." You're the greatest, son. So act accordingly. So what happened was, Nazareth, to be able to build my vibe, my parents built my heart set, which was, I'm awesome. I'm beautiful. I could do anything that I put my mind to. I'm the greatest. So act accordingly. They developed my mindset. My mindset said, be really kind to people, make a ton of friends, and be really curious about what other people are doing because you already know what you do. And then my skill set was just simply one word: relentless. So when my heart set, my mindset, and my skill set is in line, now I got an irresistible vibe that it doesn't matter what I'm doing, you're buying. Does that make sense?
Right, right. So you started with that, you know, the hairstyling and all that. And I mean, I can see where that turned into interviews every single, you know, press. Uh, what's the worst haircut you've done for someone? Or
Oh,
have you ever done one that you go, I know it's bad and the person knows it's bad. How do you leave? What do you say?
yeah. Well, there was a girl that came in and I started going. I started cutting. I was early. I was like 19, Nazareth, and I was cutting, and I knew I was in trouble, man. I knew it. And about halfway through, she knew I was in trouble too. But I've got sharp scissors, like you're already in. And I cut this woman's hair, and I honestly didn't want to look her in the eye. And I generally would do this, you know, after they were done. I would say, like, you know, thank you so much for coming in. If you have any challenges with your hair, let me know. Give me a call. Or if you want to call me and tell me it's the greatest haircut you've ever had in your life, you could do that too. My name is Kelly. Thank you so much for seeing you. I will see you in 6 weeks. But I didn't say that to her. I just wanted her to get out. I wanted her to walk out the back door, down the alley, and not tell anyone that I touched her hair.
This is what you should tell her. We're selling hats next door. It will grow back.
Nazareth, what sucks about it is the way that God works, because 8 months later, that girl got hired at the salon that I was working at. Well, I kind of remember her face, and then I realized it. And then I walked up to her and I was like, hey, we know each other, don't we? And she was like, yep. And I said, I gave you the worst haircut you've ever had in your life, didn't I? She said, yep. And what I learned at that time is most of the time when we screw up as human beings, we want to run from it. But what my parents taught me, my mom and my pops, was, you know what? Call it for what it is. And when I called it for what it is, I was like, it was me. I did it. Then her and I became friends. And we laughed about it, and it was at my expense. But if you could laugh at your own expense, it makes everyone else feel vulnerable and open, and then they'll be one of your friends. And then she became my friend afterwards. That's what I'm saying, right?
Hey, you know, that's funny that she came back to help the store, I think. She's like, you know, they need some help. I need to get. Oh, that's awesome. What was the biggest challenge in your life that you overcame?
We talking this week or
No, life. I mean, the biggest one, the one that really you can't forget about.
Well, I think one of the biggest ones that's been overarching is I don't read really well. I didn't do well in school. I think you know, paying attention was really, really hard unless it was something that I was interested in. And some people call that, like, you know, nowadays they'll be like, oh, you got ADHD. I'm like, nah, you just suck as a teacher. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think if you were better as a teacher, I would pay attention. Like, you know, and so I think that you know, there was alcoholism in my family growing up. There was drug abuse. There was physical abuse. There was sexual abuse in my family. We lived in a double wide. We lived in a single wide. I'm half Mexican. I'm half white from Utah. So, you know, like, I mean, there's so many avenues that I can joke about, and I'm okay. Like, I can make fun of Mexicans and you can't get mad at me. No. I can make fun of a double wide. You can't get mad at me because I lived in it. And so there was so many things, but what I believe that happened is my mom told me this. I used to get made fun of because I didn't have the same clothes as everybody else because we didn't have enough money. And my mom told me this. She said, you need to thank God that you can't afford those things, that we can't afford those things, and that those kids are making fun of you because, Kelly, it's going to make you stronger where it would kill somebody else. Wouldn't you rather take the bullet than somebody that it would actually harm?
Wow. What a great parents you had. Now some Christian parents would go, I would never tell, we're Christians, I never tell my kid he's great. You know, I would tell him we're humble. We have to humble ourselves. We're just, you know, we're not living in this world. But what do you tell those parents?
I mean, I've learned not to judge parents, because I used to do it when I was a single guy and I was not have kids, and I would go into the store, Nazareth, and I would see a kid acting up. I'd be like, not on my watch. When I have kids, they're going to be soldiers. Then I had kids, and guess what they did? They cried and pooped in the store and did all the stuff that I thought. So if you're out there and you're single and you don't have kids, stop judging people, because those kids are coming to you. I promise. But what I would say is that it was a very simple thing. Right. And so my parents always helped me to understand, my mom and my dad, they helped me to understand that I was perfectly, wonderfully made in the image of God. Anything contrary to that's a lie. And from this day forward, only accept truth. So if I only accepted truth, the truth was that I was perfectly, wonderfully made in the image of God, and he doesn't make any junk, and he didn't start with me. So that way it really freed me. Now, a part of it, Nazareth, I think that they were preparing me for life, knowing that I couldn't read that well and all these things. And maybe they were just blowing smoke, but the smoke that they blew, I got high on it, and I live on it now, right? You know what I mean?
That's awesome. So you started doing what do you call it? What do you call it? You started the salon. You worked in a salon. Then you owned one. Then you owned two. Then you owned three, and then you had one at the Hard Rock Cafe hotel, I think, in Vegas.
Yeah, it was amazing, man. It was awesome, man. I think the biggest deal was my mom was there for the opening, and my mom, I got to, I called the hotel, because we were right in the hotel, Hard Rock Casino in Las Vegas, and I called my mom and I was like, everything's good. Like, you got a suite. They took care of a suite. And then John Paul Deoria, who's the co-founder of Paul Mitchell, the guy with the ponytail, he's only been to one. Before that one, he had only been to one opening of a salon in the whole history of Paul Mitchell. Wow. And he came to mine, which was the number 2. So I was freaked out, Nazareth. And everybody was like, man, John Paul is coming. He was the owner of Patron. Like, he had just sold Patron for $5.4 billion. And he's a friend of mine. But he agreed to come. He flew in just for my opening. So you can imagine this. I'm doing my mom's hair in Nazareth. I'm blow drying her hair. And I was like, and everyone runs up and they're like, the eagle has landed. And I knew what that was. John Paul's in the building. And he wasn't in the salon, but he had just showed up in the hotel. So my mom, like, I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, Mom, can you believe it? John Paul is here. He's a co-founder of Paul Mitchell. He sold Patron for $5.4 billion, $1.3 billion more than George Lucas sold Star Wars for. Wow. He's coming here. I'm so nervous, Mom. What do you think? My mom was calm. My mom was like 5 foot tall, calm, little blue-eyed, blonde-haired lady, beautiful. She turned, looked me in my face, and she was like, son, does he know what you do? And she reminded me that all the things that I think, oh my gosh, I met this person, I met that person. She was like, no, they get to meet you, son. That's the way that she thought about her boy. And I tell you, if you're a parent, encourage your kids. They do not need your constructive criticism. They need encouragement. I have been encouraged since the day that I was born. And I'm encouraged by my big brother, Rob, who's my hero. I'm encouraged by my big brother, Guy, who's my hero. My friend, Will, who's been my best friend since 4th grade. I am surrounded by people who encourage me. And guess what happens? They gave me wings, baby, and I didn't need any Red Bull.
Amen. 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 And you're an encourager. And what do you call it? I have read. Tell us about this vibe. You're the vibe authority. I mean, tell us more about this vibe. How can people have it? How can a church? It's for groups, right? It's not for.
So we settled in this, and I created what's called the Vibe Room. And the Vibe Room, what it is the live version of my podcast. Our podcast is in the top 1% globally, and I've just been very fortunate because I have a lot of friends who encourage me. But a lot of people were asking, can I experience the podcast? So we created an experience called the Vibe Room. And the reason why I said vibe is because the difference, Nazareth, between someone buying something or you buying something and you not buying it is not the price. It's not the product. It's the vibe. It's the way in which it makes you feel. Right. And so but it's crazy because it's the one thing that most companies and individuals never focus on and don't know how to construct. But what we did in the salon And what we have done on the podcast and what we do at the Vibe Room is we construct the vibe. And some of it is physical, right? It's the way it smells. Some of it's the audible, the music you hear, the tone at which. Then it's the way that you're greeted, right? And it's all encompassing. It's the vibe in which you feel at the party that you're like, oh, wow, I don't care. Like, imagine if you go to a party in the Hollywood Hills, greatest house in the world, beautiful view, great catering, and everyone is mean to you. You don't like the vibe, you never come back. Then you go to Lompoc, California, where I'm from. Not the place where you want to hang out. No view, in the backyard. There's a keg, whatever it is. And everybody is touching you. Everybody is connecting with you. You're like, I like this vibe. Even though it's this hole in the wall, it's the feeling in which I walk away with. And what we did is we help companies, brands, and individuals to construct that vibe. So then it becomes irresistible. And like I said, it's a vibe triangle, right? Your heart set, your mindset, your skill set in line. And when they're congruent, because most of the time, people are constantly looking for the skill set. Nazareth, give me 3 things that I could do tomorrow that will help my business or make me laugh but if your heart isn't in the right place, it doesn't matter. But if your heart's in the right place and your mind's not in the right place, it doesn't matter. If your skills are in the right place, but your heart isn't there and your mind isn't there, it doesn't matter. So if you could get your heart, your mind, and your skills in line, it's curtains. Then you can move in and out of, we had the salons, and then we created that vibe in the podcast. And then when I go and speak, I create the vibe in the room, right? And so now with Secret Knock and Prosperity Camp, 2 of the top networking conferences in the world that you can't go to unless you're invited. But they brought me in because I knew how to activate the vibe. And imagine if your brand or the person out there in the church, right? Imagine the church. Imagine every single church selling the same exact thing, Jesus, right?
Right.
Why do you go to one as opposed to the other? It's the vibe in which you feel.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us more about this, like the live vibe room. What is it? How many people? How do they come? How can how do you do that? Or when you're invited to speak, that's what you call it.
So the vibe room, this next one is October 5th. And this one's very limited. It's very exclusive. It's only 60 people that we have. And it's going to be at the Edison House in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's like an old jazz club, like a speakeasy. Think of Maisel. You've seen Maisel. Think of Maisel, that club, that 50s club, jazz club, smoky kind of whatever. And it's this speakeasy. And then I have some of the most iconic people in the world, right? So, and I interview them, but we sit down. And what I love about your interview style, man, and I want to compliment you on this, is number one, you ask really, 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 really cool questions that actually mean something. And number 2, Nazareth, you listen. And that's why people listen to your podcast. You listen. And so what I do is I sit down with these people and you get to hear about who they are as opposed to what they do. And I mean, the lineup we don't release a lineup either. We talk about the past people or whatever it is, but the lineup on October 5th is ridiculous. Like, it's unbelievable. And there's only 60 people that can come. And for me, again, it's like that, we want to make sure that the vibe room is not just about the people on stage. It's the person sitting next to you. And we have people that make connections with the person sitting next to them that literally changed their life. We had one guy that went from 120 days, he went from 9 to 5 job to stepping off to becoming one of the top motivational speakers in the world, just had his first best-selling book. And now he, is meeting with Gary Vee, David Meltzer, all these people 120 days removed from being at Secret Knock and experiencing one of these kind of the vibe room, the Secret Knock and Prosperity Camp.
Tell us about the Secret Knock. What is more? That's the Secret Knock. That's different than the Vibe Room, right?
Yes. So the Vibe Room is my event that I do and I host, and it's a live version of the podcast.
Right.
And what Secret Knock is it's the #1 networking conference in the world. I always say that you can't explain it until you come, and once you come, it's very even hard to explain because it's literally life changing. you have a curated group of people that you don't have any takers in the room. You have givers.
Oh,
And
okay. That's
everybody-
different. See, that's the difference. A lot of times
Everybody-
you go somewhere, you want to see what you can get. How can you get something out of it? And maybe you'll sell your product. Maybe they'll hire you. Oh, that's really neat. That's neat. Okay.
Well, and I think one of the coolest things is for me, like Nazareth, I'm going to force you to be my friend for the rest of your life. Right.
It won't be hard.
So with that fact, I'm not in a rush for anything. So I'm not in a rush that we have to do a business deal tomorrow or we have to do this together. Why? Because we're going to be friends for the rest of our lives. So that's going to result in some amazing things that we'll do together. And, say in the future, I'm going to interview you at the Vibe Room. I'm going to have you at the Vibe Room, or I'm going to interview you and maybe even just have you open up the Vibe Room, do an opening act, do your comedy there. I'm not in a rush though, because we're going to be friends forever. And when you go into it with that type of mentality, like, one of my friends now that I met through Secret Knock is the founder of, he was the founder and creator of the E! Entertainment Network.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, I mean, most people are trying to pitch him if they ever meet him. He's just my buddy. And I'm not trying to pitch him on anything because I'm going to be in his life for the rest of his life. So I'm not in a rush. And when you have that and you just want to contribute to people, it goes back to that mindset. When you want to be kind to people, which is be of contribution to everybody, guess what starts to happen? Everybody feels safe because they know you're not taken. Think of it. Think of our example in our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Was he ever taking from an environment? Was he going in and being like, yo, what kind of bread you guys got? Give me your donkeys. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wasn't. He was like, yo, I'm here and I'm going to heal anybody who needs it. And I'm going to be with you. And you know what? I don't want you to talk about it when I leave. I want to just leave before you start focusing too much on this stuff and I'm going to be out. But what do we do as men? We do it. And then we're like, yo, did you see what I did? You see how many times I did it? Yo, you need to praise me. But we're not following the leader. And what the leader said was, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do my work. And if my work is good enough, you'll find out. And 2,000 years later, he's got more followers than anyone on the TikToks.
Exactly. I love your wisdom. I love your wisdom. This is amazing, Kelly. It just, what do you call it? Like sometimes, when people meet, especially when you're self-employed or you're an artist or you're in business for yourself, the minute you meet someone who has some kind of influence or is capable to give you work or something, you start like, this is my only 2 minutes to pitch my idea or to pitch my request and ask them if they can have. And you're right. And what you're saying is like, no, we're going to be friends. And how do you know you're going to be friends with these people? How do you know that? Because
I'm going to force it. I'm going to force it. I'm going to stay in contact. I want to contribute to you, with you. We've got phone numbers exchanged. I'm going to text you and not text you only when I need you. I'm going to get to know you before I ever need you. And I want to contribute to your life, man. And if I'm not contributing to your life, I don't deserve to be in it. And so what I find is like, again, just not being in a rush, and it freaks people out. When I went into the kind of personal development space that I'm kind of in now, people were freaked out because I'd meet them and they'd be like, so what do you do? And I was like, I make people happy. And then I'd be like, what do you do? And I'd turn it back on them. They want to talk about themselves anyway.
Right.
But they would freak out. They'd be like, but what do you do? I do cool stuff with my friends. Well, how do I become your friend? Well, be kind, make friends, and be curious, right? And people they would freak out. They'd wonder. And what I found is when you continually contribute to people, they will fall over themselves to try and do something for you. It's not a day that goes by, Nazareth, that a friend of mine now doesn't call me and say, is there a way that I can contribute to? Is there something that I can do? And my answer is always, I'm good. Be my friend. And then what I keep doing is depositing into the account of our friendship, because at some point, like my friend Will is my best friend since I was in 4th grade. I can call that guy at any time with any need, and there would be no question at all. He would be right by my side. But you can't buy that.
No.
You can't speed that up. I can't give you a course on how to be friends for what? I became friends with him when I was 9 years old. I'm 48 now. 38 years. You can't replace it.
Right.
And my brother, who's my best friend in the world, my brother Rob, I know if I needed something, he's there. But how many times do we try and fast forward a relationship because we need what they have, as opposed to saying, every one of you out there that's listening, and yourself included, Nazareth, like, you have superpowers. You have the superpower of making people laugh and making people feel on top of the world. You do. When you give that away to people, it gives them the greatest power in the world. And the more and more and more that you do that, the more and more people want to contribute back to you. But what I always say is, honestly, the longer and longer you can delay the ask, the stronger and stronger the relationship will be.
What makes you cry?
I started to cry this morning. My dad only listened to Christian music towards, last, probably 15 years of his life. And there was some music on this morning that hit me. It nailed me, and it speaks to me. Anytime that I, listen to some classic rock, especially Tramp.
Tramp, yeah, of course.
Tramp, that's my pop. Like, I listen to Tramp, I'm just gushing. When I think about time with my son and my daughter, because my dad was young. He was only 68 when he passed. And when I think about time with my mom, with my pops, with my son, with my daughter, with my wife, literally, like, it gets me, man.
My dad was 66 when he passed away. I know it's hard, but I was not a Christian back then. My parents were not like believers, and my dad was working a lot all the time. So the moments I have with him was wonderful. I enjoyed it. And I think I had the same person. It's very graceful, loving people, everyone. But how do you, when we hear the word prosperity as Christians, some Christians get shaken by it. But when you say this prosperity conference, can you explain a little bit? Remembering I came to Christ at a Southern Baptist and I attended Calvary Chapel for multiple. This is this is not a theology or like trying to defend anything. I just want your perspective on it.
Well, I think people will get confused, and I used to have a real big challenge with the prosperity gospel. Right? It was like, oh, God wants you to have blah 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 blah. And what I learned it was really simple, as in the Lord's Prayer, help me with the beginning of it. The Lord's Prayer. How am I blanking on this?
Our Father in heaven.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Right? Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses. We forgive those who trespass against us. For yours is the glory and honor forever and ever. Amen. But if you break that down, he's, our Father who art in heaven, respecting who God is. Right. Hallowed be thy name. Your name is above all names.
Holy.
Your kingdom come, your will be done. Your will. Mm-hmm. And it brings it to Matthew 6:33, right? So seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all else will be added on. But I got hung up on this prosperity gospel because there's so many people that will take a little bit of the gospel and add a lot of human, and then they'll twist it for their advantage. When I say the prosperity camp, we're not just talking about the money aspect of it. We're talking about it in 4 different areas: personal, professional, spiritual, and financial. And think of it as 4 legs to the table, right? Right. And sometimes the prosperity that God wants you to have in your life is going to be peace with exactly what you have right now. Is he going to bring increase? Maybe. Is he going to help you to be content exactly where you're at and to be able to work your land? Absolutely. But for the person who constantly, and I hear this all the time, like, oh, God wants me to have multiple, like he wants to multiply my finances so I can just go out and bless other people. Do you really think God needs you to do that?
Right.
He don't. God could drop it out the sky. God could part the sea. He could do all those things. So I think that for me, prosperity is to get to the point where you only desire one thing and only realize that there's only one decision that you need to make. That desire is his will, and that there's only one decision. This is what my pops would say. Only one decision, boy, that you ever need to make. And that is, do you want your best or do you want God's best? You choose.
I want to encourage people to watch your videos on Instagram and Facebook and stuff, because it was very encouraging. This morning you were talking about you're on the beach somewhere, and I know you didn't record it this morning, but it
was yesterday. It was yesterday morning.
It was yesterday, and
yeah,
I listened to it. I'm like, yeah, my pop told me, you want your best or God's best? I'm like, this is deep. This is good. This is good. Yeah. You're a best-selling author, and there was something called the 6 Indicators for Business and Life by Kelly Cardenas. 6 Indicators for Business and Life. Can you just help people a little bit with that?
Yeah. So I was going to speak in a place called Tecumseh, Michigan, and I had my thing that I was going to give them. I was ironing my clothes, and as I was ironing my clothes, the Lord spoke to me and said, this is what you're going to say tomorrow. And I was like, no, Jesus.
I already got my message. Thank you.
I already got my message. I'm good. And he said, no, you're not, boy. This is what you're going to say. And then he gave me these 6 that outside these 6, I couldn't find anything in business, in relationships, or in my life that wouldn't be solved inside these 6. Now, it wasn't because of me, but it went like this. Culture. You need to understand what your culture is. You need to understand your story, right? You need to understand the story and do you own the story or you just rent the story? You need to understand your belief system, and you need to understand your threshold for your belief system. So your culture, that's what your culture is made up of. Number 2 is the vibe, the way in which you make people feel. And you can construct the vibe, and if you're intentional with it, you can activate it. Number 3, process and procedure, which is most of the time people get the cart before the horse, and they look at the processes and procedures and look and try and think, how can I make things better? What processes? But you don't have your culture in line and you don't have your vibe in line. So your processes and procedures don't matter anyway.
Right.
Then we look at your productivity, because anything that's measured can grow. Right. So we look at that productivity and we just keep score. It's like a football game, right? I'm a Tennessee Titans fan, and I think they're the greatest team in the world. Houston Oilers, they're way better than the Dallas Cowboys. So all you Dallas Cowboys fans, seriously, you just need to go home.
We're going to edit that part, but that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, you just need to go home, because the 90s is when you peaked and you ain't peaking again. Every year you think you're going to the Super Bowl and it ain't happening. But the productivity is something in a company, an organization, or with a person, you need to track it. And then once that happens, we have the culture, the vibe, the process and procedure, the productivity. It gives people freedom to innovate. And when they innovate, it doesn't matter unless they have the last one, which is the ability to adapt immediately. And when you have the culture, the vibe, the process and procedure, the productivity, the innovation, you give people freedom to do things, screw up, just write down a new rule. And then you have the ability to adapt immediately. It's curtains. There's no organization that could stand against you. You will perform at such a high, it's nuts once we start to look at these indicators and we just score from 1 to 10 in every one of those. And then at some, like, you're never going to score 10 in all of them, Nazareth. So when you're down in your culture, you may be up in your vibe. So now let the vibe go, work on your culture, but then your culture, then your vibe is going to drop a little bit, or your process of procedure. And it's just working every day. Like, look at the Lord's Prayer. Give us this day our daily bread. Not this week, not this month, not 3-year goals, But right, every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling. And you're just checking in. And then I got to the point inside the company that all I had to do was just score it. Where's the culture at today? The crew would tell me. Where's the process? They'd tell me. Where's the innovation? They'd tell me. And they knew what to work on because the people inside your organization already know the challenges, but they just don't have anyone to listen to them. And if you start listening to the people inside your organization, you'll solve all the problems that you have.
Wow. How many staff at one point you had with your salons?
We had 85 at the peak.
85. And what you just told me, and you said they were telling you you didn't know how to read good, and that's you're amazing. It's amazing. Just what's next for Kelly? What is Kelly working on right now?
The podcast is a big one. So
Yeah.
I started the podcast because I wanted to show my kids that there was no idols in life to worship, only icons to be inspired by. And so that's been a big project. We are the Vibe Room, October 5th in Salt Lake City at the Edison House. I promise you, the lineup is ridiculous. We've got NBA superstars. I've got one of the largest names in entertainment that has made more stars than most people. And you get up close and personal. There's only 60 people in the room. There's actually only 20 tickets right now, actually 15. Because 5 of them went away today. There's only 15 tickets available for this. And you're up close and personal with them. It's one of the coolest clubs in the world. And I'm telling you, like, it is unbelievable. So that's the project that I.
So how much is the tickets? How can they get a whole ticket?
Well, they're gonna be able to get them on kellycardinas.com.
Okay.
The tickets are $1,000 a piece.
Okay.
And so, but again, like for me, what I find is every single person that comes, they're going to be sitting next to someone that can change their life. They're going to hear phenomenal interviews, which is going to be great. They're going to connect with people, but the people in the room that the light's not shining on, that's the people that will really change your life.
Now, is this what do you call one day, right? It's a one-day event.
It's one day. Yeah. It's October 5th. It's going to start about 5:30 in networking. And then the show starts at 7. And what I'm doing, my idea with this is the Vibe Room will ultimately turn into a TV show. And so what I wanted to have was the heart of Oprah, the intellect of David Letterman, and the comedy of Jimmy Fallon. And you mix that together and you really get interviews that you would never get anywhere else. So it's not the canned stuff of like,
Right.
Nazareth, I sit down with you, you have a book, we talk about the book, blah, 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 and you have a speech that you tell me.
Right.
It's not that. You get a chance. Like when I interviewed Stephen Covey for the podcast, I mean, we got to talk about his dad and his relationship with his dad, which he had never talked about. And those are things for me that really mean something. So that's what we're really working on. So
How long have you had the podcast?
we have had it for a little over 3 years. We just dropped episode 287 today. And we'll do 288 and 289 this week. Eddie George from the Tennessee Titans, Heisman Trophy winner. We're just about to drop his episode. And that was more for me because I'm a Houston Oilers and Tennessee Titans fan. But I mean, he's a Heisman Trophy winner. He's an incredible guy. He gives advice to my kids by name. Hey, Maddox and McKenna, this is what I think you should do. And this comes from Eddie George. You know what I'm saying? So I'm really in those pinch me kind of moments, but I do want you to know, Nazareth, that like, it isn't all glory. Like, there's work involved, and I worked on Eddie George for 3 years before he responded to me, and
that was my next question.
Yeah.
And it was a selfish question because I do this once a week for the last 3 years, and we're episode 179, this one. But how do you get big names like that to be on your podcast? I mean, that's a selfish question.
Well, it's a selfish. Number one is I want you to know that you have access to every single person that has been on my podcast, meaning that they're all my friends now. I forced them to be that. But my mom gave me that the wings, right? So my heart set is that I'm awesome, I'm beautiful, and I can do anything that I put my mind to. So what I do is like, what was it? yesterday or 2 days ago, I sent out a video to DMC from Run DMC
Yeah.
on Instagram. Hey, it's Daryl McDaniel. Hey, Daryl McDaniel. My name is Kelly Cardinas. Started a podcast because of my kids. I wanted to take icons like you and show that my kids shouldn't worship idols, but iconic people like you, they could be inspired by. I'd love to have you on the show. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll keep messaging him until he responds. It's my work ethic and my skill set is like this. I said it was resilience, right?
Right.
Or, and see, here it is. For me, it's what my dad called a pit bull mentality.
Mm.
So my pop said a pit bull mentality is like this. A pit bull will lock its jaws on, and you either have to kill the dog or lose the limb. And so for me, in relationships, in business, I have a pit bull mentality. We're going to go after this thing until it works. And I think, as you know, I mean, I want to congratulate you on 179 episodes. That's amazing. I think it's 75 or 80% of people don't get past 3 episodes.
Right.
3.
Do you know why I still do the podcast?
Because you're good at it.
No, I'm intrigued by people. I love people. I love to know about people, their journeys, their failures, their successes. And I'm really taking more out. There's 130 people right now. That means Facebook didn't tell everyone about it, but live. But it will be next week. It will be it goes on iTunes and all that. It will have a lot of people. But I do this for me. I love to know about people. I love, and like we said earlier before the podcast, I don't want someone to give me their recorded answer that they already, it's generic. They know what to say, how to answer. No, I want real. What makes you cry? What makes you laugh? You saying I went in the closet and I screamed at that lady. That's real Christianity, people. That's not like, oh, everything is perfect. So that's amazing. So you're right. You have that pit bull mentality. You just keep going after, until you get them to respond. That's I give up after a while. I feel bad. My insecurity kicks in. I go, I don't want to think I'm stalking them. I don't want to do that. But that's amazing. What do you teach your kids as far as, is it the same what your dad and mom taught you? Is that the same thing?
Yeah, I have journals that really changed my life. It really, really did. And my daughter went through a tough time during COVID and stuff. And so I started writing her letters every day, and I have a little journal and I handwrite the letter. And, I've missed days. But for the first probably year, I wrote every single day, and I wrote her a letter. And then at the end of the week, I'd give her the journal, and then she'd read the 7 letters and give it back to me. And at the end of every letter, I say the same 3 things that my mom said to me every day. You're awesome, you're beautiful, and you can do anything. Now, right now, they see it. I'm sure that my daughter sees it as, this is repetition. This is what my dad says all the time. But it took me years and years to understand the meaning of it. But when you were saying, like, how do you stay up, or how do you stay, have this joy, or whatever it is, it goes back to what I heard, right? And what I'd invite all your listeners, like, you have the power to determine what you hear. Now, you can listen to podcasts. You can listen to your podcast. Your podcast lifts people up. You can listen to your comedy. It lifts people up. So what I find is we can control what we hear, what we see, and what we become aware of through the senses. Now, if you live in a bad neighborhood, I understand you're going to have some craziness around you, but fill yourself up with podcasts, with books, go to the library, listen to things listen to uplifting music. When this happens, what happens is that's what you start to believe. Like, I watch this all the time. Like, I watched I've watched family members where they'll be like, oh, the world's out to get me, and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And I'm like, it's what you heard. And I can guarantee you, give me a month, come hang with me, and let's only listen to this. And for me, I do the corresponding proverb for the corresponding day, right? So
Me too.
I'll read that, but then I'll write to my daughter, I'll write to my son. And what I thought was, Nazareth, that I was going to tell my kids all these lessons and they were going to get them. But what I realize is that they're just watching the way that I treat people, the times that I screw up, the times that I yell at the lady at the airport, like this lady. I was at the airport the other day. I have to call myself out on this. I was running and I didn't think I was going to make my flight. And I got to the front and I was like, is the plane boarding? It's a logic. I mean, it's an okay question to ask. The lady looked at me and she's like, can't you see the whatever? And I just looked at her and I was like, thanks a lot, idiot. And I had to check myself, but in my head at that time, I was justified. But then I thought about like, I mean, I'm not who I am when I'm doing the good stuff. I am who I am during that time, and I have to take responsibility for it. Now, do I still think that she needs to have better personal service? Yes. So if you work at Southwest and you were in whatever city I was in, you should be fired. Seriously, you should be fired. But I should also work a little bit on my heart. I realized that I was a little angry and I need to calm it down a little bit. So my kids are watching what I do more than what I say.
But let me stop you here, Kelly, and I'm just not contradicting you. But first of all, I'm Middle Eastern. I can't run at the airport, so the flight is gone. That's number one. Number two, it's you when you were encouraging, and it's you when you were telling this lady it's stupid. That was stupid. It's you. You're both. See, sometimes when we do something bad, you go, that's just me. I'm horrible. I need to be better. But we don't stop ourselves when we're doing something great. You're helping that poor person. You're investing in this person's life. You got to stop and go, well, that's me too. But that's me too because Jesus has done something in between that person who told the lady at the counter that's stupid and that person that's blessing people and making them feel great. There's the work that Jesus did. And how did you come to know Christ, Kelly?
My dad was a fanatic. And when I say a fanatic, not just a fanatic about Jesus, a fanatic about everything. Like my dad Pops was hot or cold. Like he would take things literal. So, okay, think of this. He grows up Mexican in Utah. It's not cool to do that.
That's not good.
That's not cool. So obviously being Mexican, he had a lot of guilt and he was Catholic, right? So he grew up Catholic, but it's better to be Catholic and just not practice than to ever admit that you ain't Catholic in a Mexican family. Okay?
Right.
But it's also better in Utah to say that you're Mormon and just not practice than it is to be anything else.
Right.
So you can imagine he's this
brown two things going against him.
little brown boy, and then he meets a little white girl. Ooh. And the brown boy isn't allowed to be with the white girl.
Right.
Right. And so my Pops was hot or cold. That I remember the pit bull mentality. Right. Lock it on. I'm going. I'm in. I'm focused. We ain't get this is how we would say. He'd say, boy, I ain't trying to do it unless we're doing it all the way. He said, boy, you ever see a half pregnant woman? I said, I don't know, Dad. He's like, no, because they're either pregnant or they're not. You don't stand in the middle of the street, boy. You stand on one side or the other. You stand in the middle. That's where you get hurt. Don't be half cocked, boy. That's what he would say. And so when he, like, get this, Nazareth, when he found Jesus in like 1984, I was in fifth grade, fifth grade. I didn't know Jesus was lost, but my dad found him. And once my dad found him, he went all in. My dad changed our dog's name from
That's funny.
This is a true story.
From what to what?
Our dog was named Bandit.
Bandit.
And my dad said that gives that dog a bad spirit. We're changing that dog's name to Elijah. And we said, what? We ain't going to call Bandit Elijah Pot. And he was like, that's the dog's name. It's got an evil spirit. It's Bandit. You can't be calling it Bandit. I mean, we went from not going to church to going to church 4 times a week, going morning, noon, Wednesday, Bible study, all the stuff. And me and my brother were like, this dude is crazy.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time, like we went into this church and they were speaking in tongues,
Oh.
and we didn't know what this was, but a person was speaking tongues, then a person would translate. So me and my brother was sitting in the pews, and you can imagine, like we're cutting up, we're 4th, 5th grade. And my brother's like, yo, Kelly, stand up and just say a bunch of nonsense. Say a bunch of nonsense. And then I'm going to translate it as, Brother Kelly needs your money. And so we would die laughing, and everyone in the church, they would say the same tongues. Like if you speak in tongues, it's different. But our pastor, he would be like this, shum diddy-I, boom diddy-I, boodia rumbaya. And he would say that every week. And I was like, dude, you're not speaking in tongues. You're saying the same thing. And then someone would translate, and it was scary. And then they said something that scared me. They were like, you need to give your heart to Jesus. And I was like, I ain't trying to give nothing to nobody. All you are fat, broke, and ain't cool at all. That's Christianity to me. And I was thinking, man, this sucks. Like, I don't want to be like this. And then I remember I was in the shower, and I had been listening to this song called The Bible Break. Take time out each day for a Bible break. It was like a rap, and it said all the books of the Bible. And I remember memorizing this. And then I was in the shower. I was like in 4th grade, and God said, I want your heart. And I was like, all right. And I gave him my heart, but I was like, I don't want to give you everything, because if I give you everything, I can't talk to girls no more. I can't do some of the silly things that I'm doing. So what I did is I hid from God. I just hid my head. Remember when you were a kid and you would just hide your head and you would think your whole body you couldn't see you? Right. And I was doing that. And then when I about 19 years old, that's when my pop and I's relationship really, really started to sink together. And he started saying, feed on 1 page a day. Don't try and understand it. Just feed on it. And I started to feed on it. And what I started to find was the more and more I fed on it, the more and more it came out my mouth. So again, what I started to hear, I started to believe, and then I started to add into my actions. And then it was just little bit by little bit by little bit. And, God kept working on me. And, I remember he spoke to me audibly the first time. It freaked me out. He told me a job was over. And I was like, you're talking to that guy in the next car, because it ain't me. And then he said it again. He said it's over. And I was like, that wasn't me. He said it a 3rd time. I knew it was him. And at that time, he asked me to walk away from everything that I had. I was 21 years old, making about $75,000 a year at 1995. Wow. And he said, I need you to walk away from it. Give it to me. And when you give it to me, your bucket, the glass that you have is full right now with all your attributes, accomplishments, and everything like that. But if you give it back to me, I'll give you a bucket. That bucket will be empty, but you'll never understand how much I can bless you when I fill that bucket. And I'm glad I chose the bucket.
Amen. Kelly, how can people get a hold of you?
KellyCardinas.com. I would love for everyone to go to YouTube right now and just smash the subscribe button, because my son thinks I'm cooler if I have subs, because my son is 11.
Okay, YouTube.com / what?
The Real Kelly Cardinas on YouTube, and then The Real Kelly Cardinas on every social. It's not because I think I'm cool. It's because there's a woman Latin singer that got my name before me.
Oh, okay. So YouTube.com. Oh, shoot. I have to put it better. YouTube.com / The Real Kelly Cardinas with an E. Okay. Hey. Yes. Okay. Please, people, go subscribe to The Real Kelly Cardinas on YouTube, or go to Instagram, follow him on Facebook, on all of this. Get his books. Go to kellycardinas.com, order the books and the T-shirts and the bling and all that. Are you still selling the bling, the scissors?
Yeah. We've got the bling and we've got the scissors. The bling was the #1 selling product in the history of our company, and it was a mistake. When I made it, my brother was working with Vanderlei Silva in the UFC. He was his manager, and Vanderlei wanted body wash for UFC fighters. So we made it, and the guy sent me over a product, and he's like, just check this out. Well, I tested it out. I tested it on my mom, And my mom said, I told her all the benefits of it. It adds moisture, strength, shine, all of them together. It's amazing, Mom. It smells like vacation. And she took it, rubbed it in her hand, smelled it, and she was like, oh, it must work. And I was like, Mom, I did all that work to the technology, all the stuff. She's like, no, it smells like that. It must work. And it was my mom's favorite, but it became the #1 seller, even over all the Paul Mitchell products that we sold. It outsold everything 8-1.
Wow.
It was the only thing that we couldn't keep on the shelves. And like, you can't.
It's a body wash?
No, it adds moisture, strength, and shine. So it's like blow drying a conditioner into your hair. It's for the hair, skin, and nails. It's called Bling. Honestly, the only bad thing about it is it can't be overused, meaning that there's no negative to it. But because of that, people overuse it and waste it. So
get your hair, nail, and stuff all moisturized by going to kellycardinas.com and get Kelly. I'm so glad we're in this for the long run. You know, I love you, brother. I love your heart. You encouraged me today. I'm excited. I'm encouraged. I can't wait to go and tell my daughter. I always tell my kids our family motto is never ever give up. They know that, and they used to think I'm very repetitive, but as they got older, they go, you know what? I didn't give up, and it works. But I'm going to tell them you're awesome. You're wonderful. So thank you so much. And if I can be of any help to you, let me know.
Well, I'm the same way, man. And what I want to say to all your listeners out there, an actionable item that really can change your life and change your heart right now, like literally today. Get a journal tonight. If you're married, just write a letter to your wife every single day, every single morning. Write a letter to her at the end of the week, hand her 7 letters. But it has to be from your heart, and it has to be something that's very specific, because she'll sniff it out. Yeah. If you have kids, do this for your kids. It will change not only the relationship with that person, but it'll change your heart, which is the biggest part, because you'll have to focus on all the great things that you're doing, because you have to write them a letter in the morning.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Kelly. I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time. I look forward to see you in person. Live.
I love you, man.
I love you too, brother. Thank you so much. And thank you guys so much for watching. This is amazing. This is such a learning hour for me. And I hope it was for you and for you who's going to listen to this. Why don't you go subscribe to this and then take this episode and give it to someone who's, the life is going, there's no meaning for my life, or something like that, or someone needs encouragement and all that. Just let them watch it. And then also watch the Kelly Cardenas, listen and watch to the Kelly Cardenas podcast. Go to his site, find out where you can get the podcast. And also, if you can make it to Utah, Park City, Utah on, I think, October 5th, they're having the Vibe Room Live. For $1,000, you get to learn so much, and they have great guests. So do that. Go to his site and follow him, and you'll get all that. Love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Again, this Saturday, I'm going to be at Cornerstone Church in Waldemar they're doing a mental health conference. You check their site for the time and all that. And also next Friday, I'm going to be in Omaha, Nebraska, people. Get your tickets today for the radio station concert back to school. Love you guys. Thank you so much. And please subscribe to this podcast. Good night.